Alright, what's up everybody, it's Kami, and for a long time I've been stuck on how I wanted to tackle this video idea. It's been in a developmental hell. Think of Final Fantasy 15, there you go, there's your definition of developmental hell. I've just been back and forth on how I want to tackle this, and I thought I would sit down and, explain to you guys what I think makes Stone Ocean good. And I'm just going to be talking about, some of the things that I think are really great about it, and I'll also bring up some of the points where it's a little weaker because it's just a fair thing to do, and I just want to have an overall discussion at least on all of these things. Now keep in mind this video is going to be chock full of spoilers, so if you haven't read all of JoJo Part 6, or you're reading it or something, click out of the video if you don't want to be spoiled. Go finish reading the part, get to it, whatever, finish it, and then come back and watch the video if you want. But just don't complain to me about spoilers, honestly, because I try to warn you guys all the time. There's always an intro and stuff, and by the way, I guess we'll play the intro. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about first when it comes to Stone Ocean actually is the ending. And I know it's kind of weird to start at the end, but this is one of the things that I see people either like or hate. It's like a hit or miss thing. And usually people end up not liking the ending, but I think that the ending is really nice. It's really bittersweet. And there's a couple layers to some of the stuff going on in it that I just really personally enjoy and find to be good. So probably the first thing I want to make note of about the ending is I do actually like the fact that everybody loses, not because everybody's dying and I hate the characters or anything like that, because I like the characters. But it's just really cool to see that Pucci is just so much stronger in comparison and became literally like overpowered. He basically became a god compared to everybody else. And he just made quick and easy work of everybody. I mean, Jotaro couldn't even stand a chance at all. And Jotaro is supposed to be one of the strongest guys in the series, with Star Platinum being a really powerful stand, and he's always done so good in all of his fights. And he gets to Pucci and he's completely just useless, and he can't do anything except for one point, but I'm going to talk about that later. Everybody else gets their asses kicked, and even though, they all die and stuff, they still go down fighting. They were still trying. Jolyne sat down and bought time for Emporio to escape. And, even though she was going to die and she was dying and she knew what was going on, she still fought Pucci. She still, stanced up underwater and decided she was going to fight back. Like, stuff like that is just really cool to me. And then there's the fact that the whole end of the fight with Pucci ends up being Emporio killing him with weather report. The irony in just him dying to his brother's stand and, them both finally going to rest at the end of things, and just the quarrel between the two brothers, coming to an actual conclusion now. I think that that's just really cool. And aside from Emporio being one of my favorite characters and seeing him just give Pucci the smackdown is pretty sick, I also just really like some of the dialogue between Pucci and Emporio at the end, and the way Pucci freaks out about it because he thought he was perfect and he had, everything in his palms and everything was in the bag was secured. Pucci thought, I'm good, I won, I'm gonna kill you now, and then he died. And I know this happens pretty often in just like series in general and shonen and stuff like that, because people always forget that JoJo was in Shonen Jump up until Part 7. Part 7 is when they switched to a different magazine, but Parts 1 through 6 are shonen. And I know it's a common shonen trope for the villains to be all, oh, Nani, how could you defeat me? I was so careless, this and that, da-da-da-da-da, whatever. I thought I had everything, perfectly planned out and stuff. I know that happens often, but I still just think it's a cool thing from time to time, and I just really like seeing Pucci have a breakdown and freak out. Because Pucci kind of got nervous before points, in points before this in Stone Ocean, but he never necessarily just broke down the way he did at the end. He always kept this cool, and this is one of the things that I really do like about Pucci, is the fact that he never let things get to him. And even when stuff was shaky for Pucci, he always found a way to kind of just get out of it and save himself. And it's kind of similar to Jotaro, actually, now that I think about it. It might just be, just a parallel in between just that one characteristic about the two, and there probably could be more. That would be something that I would have to sit down and think about and look into. And the biggest complaint people give about the ending, aside from everybody dying, is they're all like, oh, or not even complaint, because the complaint is that everybody dies and people get sad about it, and I understand because I get sad about it too. But a lot of people are always like, oh, well, at least, Part 6 ended and Pucci reset the universe so we could have Steel Ball Run's universe. To that, I gotta say, no, you're dumb. You didn't pay attention to things. The whole thing with multiverses being out there is that they would have existed anyways, because even after the 2 universe resets at the end of Stone Ocean, and after, the first one, before Pucci dies, and then after when Emporio gets transported into Irene's universe isn't even in the same universe as Steel Ball Run, so even if they would have won and they would have beat Pucci and everybody would have lived and stuff like that, you know, they would have just continued living their lives and Steel Ball Run would have still happened exactly the same way it did, as long as that's what Araki wanted to do, unless Araki wanted to expand off of the end of Stone Ocean if everybody lived, you know? But people are always just like trying to drag the ending because of everybody dying, and they say, oh, well, at least Steel Ball Run came out of it, but Steel Ball Run is probably going to happen anyways, and Steel Ball Run also initially wasn't supposed to be JoJo. That's why there's a whole focus on like gyro and stuff like that in the beginning, and things are a little different. That's just something that I think I wanted to just point out and just throw out there. Another thing I wanted to talk about is our main character and our supporting cast. Now, our supporting cast, I think, are all really great characters. However, I can't sit here and sugarcoat it and say that they're not underused at times, because they definitely are. And of course, I get that the story is, you know, supposed to be centered around Jolyne and all the stuff going around her and her life. When you put in other characters that have really cool stand abilities and really cool designs and say cool things, you just want to see them do more. And, you know, characters like Hermes, who has a very strong stand, and it's honestly a stand that's overlooked. Kiss is really good. But characters like Hermes definitely could have gotten a little more screen time, because outside of her initial introduction at the very beginning and her having her own little arc after that about her sister and her killing the guy that killed her sister, she doesn't really do much except kind of just stand there, egg on Jolyne, and then die at the end, which is kind of a shame, really. And a similar thing happens to Foo Fighters. However, Foo Fighters does at least go out for trying to help, you know, like she goes out trying. And Foo Fighters is also a quote-unquote early death, even though after Foo Fighters dies and the end of that arc happens, it goes into the second half of Stone Ocean, and the part just goes by really fast from there. Also, hey, this is coming from the future, but one of the things that I actually forgot to mention while I was doing this, and I remembered while I was editing and I got to this point in the video, is that I think that the idea of Foo Fighters being a stand that's kind of just like living out a human life is really interesting. And just like looking at this panel right here where it says that she is afraid of the eradication of her own intellect, that's pretty sick, man, honestly. It goes into something that they didn't really try to do before in the series, with, you know, a stand actually trying to live out a human life. And I think that that's something interesting that'll eventually be something that I talk about on its own in its own video, because it definitely is something that's worth discussing. And there's the whole thing with the second half of it just being the overall better part of it, since all the interesting stuff happens. You have Dio's sons being introduced and them having their fights, which gives us stuff like Jolyne lighting herself on fire, or Nasui making Disney World jokes, and just getting just a little more information on the fact that, you know, Dio has multiple sons. It just adds to Dio being great. He's a vampire deadbeat dad, but the gay priest boyfriend still watches the kids. That shit's crazy. And Weather Report also gets kind of underused, although Weather Report's screen time, he's always done really cool shit, especially his first introductory battle. We sat down and he made him and Jolyne those like special space suits and stuff, because, you know, Weather Report's ability to control weather is just a really cool stand power, since you can do a lot of different stuff with that. You know, you can freeze things, you've got strong winds that can slice through people, you've got rain and thunder, you can light things on fire. Like, there's so much stuff that you can cause with weather. I really do like the concept of Weather Report as a whole. I just wish he did a little more, and I know that's literally the entire supporting cast, me saying I wish that they did more, but what kind of makes up for this is the fact that Jolyne is so damn good. Now, one of the things that I remembered seeing when I was reading Stone Ocean initially in author's notes was Araki mentioning how it was difficult for him to come up with some of the ideas and the way he was going to tackle things with Jolyne, because he went from, you know, having all boys as the main characters to having a female main character now, and how he had to change the way that things were done there. And I personally think he did a really damn good job. This is one, Jolyne is pretty funny. Jolyne is a really great character, and she's actually very, very, very similar to Jotaro, who of course is her father, and you would expect them to have similarities. But even so much as to the point where her initial goal and Jotaro's are the exact same thing. So in part 3, when it starts off, you know, Holly gets all sick and she's gonna die if they don't kill Dio. So Jotaro's gotta go kill Dio, and before that, Jotaro was all quiet and rude and, you know, hard-headed. Eventually he opens up and becomes a nice guy. Jolyne gets framed, she gets sent to jail, she hasn't seen her dad in a long time. Her dad shows up all of a sudden. She doesn't want to be all buddy-buddy and friendly with him right away, because, you know, she's skeptical because he hasn't been there. But then Jotaro gets his stand and his memories put into discs, and he gets thrown into a coma, and she's like, damn, I gotta save my dad. What the hell? He's in a coma. And the only reason Jotaro wasn't there is because stand users attract other stand users, and the second Jotaro shows up again around Jolyne, what happens? He almost dies, and she's put into danger. Because unfortunately, because Jotaro killed Dio, people like Pucci want to get rid of Jotaro. And because Jolyne is Jotaro's daughter, that also makes her a target, so it was just one of those things where he didn't want to get her involved. And that's something that Jolyne realizes later on, and then she becomes okay with Jotaro, and they have a really great moment when Jotaro has the opportunity to kill Pucci before he becomes Jesus Man at the end, and it's either kill Pucci during your time stop or save your daughter. And of course, he saved his daughter, which in the end ended up killing everybody else, and some might be like, oh, well, he could have just, bit the bullet, saved everybody, and let Jolyne die, but why would he do that when he loves his daughter? He did the thing that was the right thing to do, given that everybody still died in the end, but it's what was right. And I think a lot of people overlook this decision and don't really give it much thought into what was probably going in through Jotaro's mind. But that's just how I see it, and it's also just pretty obvious, and that panel is really damn cool when he's standing there with Jolyne's body and, he's got the shine on his back and stuff. That shit looks so sick. And I always get very upset whenever I see people that are like, oh, Jotaro should have been a better dad for Jolyne. Jolyne doesn't deserve Jotaro. Jotaro sucks, this and that. He's terrible. He's horrible. How could he? I hate when people just throw that stuff out there because it's very clearly not true. And if you were paying attention to Stone Ocean, then you would see that. And that's why I made that Jotaro and Jolyne video so long ago, because I was just tired of it, really. And again, like I mentioned before, the second half of Stone Ocean is definitely where things pick up, and that's kind of just how things are for the most part. When it comes to JoJo, usually the second half of the part is the more exciting part. The first half is introducing characters and showing off some of the cool stand abilities, and then the second half is where, the villain comes in and a bunch of cool stuff happens. Like right now in the Vento Ario anime, we're in the second half, and things are going to get really interesting really quickly. But even with stuff like Part 3, where I don't think, personally, the first half is all that boring, because they have to introduce stands and showcase them, since it's the first time the stands are being put into the series. Araki's just experimenting with stuff and showcasing all of that in that first half, so there's a lot of wacky shit. But of course, these, first few steps are necessary, so I don't have a personal problem with it, and I think it's really cool. Part 4 also has a pretty okay first half, where it's just them introducing the characters, world building, since it's more slice of life-esque. And you've got just, Josuke, Koichi, and Okuyasu doing stuff around town. Hell, even Part 7's first half of the manga was, pretty different in comparison to what it became in the second half, after stuff started to develop more and our characters had a very clear goal. So I just wish people weren't so harsh and act like it's the worst thing ever to trek through the first part of Stone Ocean, because there's some cool stuff there. And Stone Ocean has some really cool stand designs also. I particularly like Pucci's entire lineup of his stands between White Snake, Sea Moon, and Made in Heaven. I think that they all have really sick designs. You guys know that, because I've talked about it before. And it has some really cool and very enjoyable fights that I think also get overlooked. I always mention Jolyne versus Pucci after Foo Fighters dies, when Jolyne handcuffs herself to Pucci and she starts beating the everlasting shit out of him. And of course, Pucci's like, well, damn, I don't want to die right now and I have to find a way out. So he decides to attack Anasui, and then it becomes a thing where Jolyne's like, well, guess I gotta save Anasui, and I can't get Pucci right now, and then Pucci escapes. But I think that fight is just really cool. It looks really nice, and it's just really cool. And I know I've said it's really cool a bunch of times, but I just don't have any other words to really describe it. I just like it a lot. Go back and read it again. It's really cool. And of course, the Weather Report and Pucci fight is very sick. It's nice to see the two brothers just go at it. The way that Weather Report makes use of blood with his ability is just like, man, that shit is just super sick, It's just stuff like that you're not expecting to see happen, just happening. It's like, wow. It's very bizarre. It really brings in the whole thing that JoJo goes for, of just being really wacky and all over the place, especially also with Weather Report having the optical illusions and making everybody think that they're slugs. And Pucci just showing how smart he is when it comes to battle and stand-up knowledge and stuff like that. Or stand matchup knowledge. Like, Pucci's a genius, man. People slander Pucci a lot, and personally, I just don't see why you would. People are always like, oh, he's just a Dio lackey. And he's honestly not just a Dio lackey. Yes, he follows under Dio because Dio saved his life, and he just devotes himself to carrying out that same goal of Dio, carrying out that vision because it's his passion, and people seem to just, miss that, which I don't get. How could they just, dismiss that and just push off the fact that it's a really good thing for him and push it off to the side? Because people could just compare Pucci to Vanilla Ice, and it's actually not a bad comparison because they're very similar in their sense of, their adoration towards Dio. Like, Vanilla Ice cut off his own head so he could become a vampire to, fight with Dio. Like, that was some metal shit. And Pucci was given the opportunity to, kill Dio. And Dio's like, you could kill me right now and take my stand and you could rule the world. And he's like, yeah, I probably could, but I don't want to do that because I like you. And I feel like at this point, I'm just rambling on a lot about how much I just like these little details. But, you know, it's just stuff that I always see people point out as like a flaw or something that they don't enjoy. And I just don't think that they're looking at it the same way. And again, it's not the most exciting thing every 2 seconds, but that's also just how the rest of the series is. So I think it's really just like contradicting for people to nitpick Stone Ocean so much more than everything else because they just don't like the main characters or something. I don't know. I think it's really weird, and just, you know, just stop. Stop being so nitpicky about everything as a whole and being overly critical and overly analytical. And that's coming from me, because I'm an analytical dude. We're sitting here analyzing, you know, what I think makes this shit good and why I think people should be less critical about it. If you guys enjoyed the video, you know, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We do weekly Vento Ario streams reviewing the new episodes, and I haven't been working on videos too much recently because I've just been going through a lot of personal stuff, but here we are again, you know, gonna be working on getting a steady recording schedule. I want to try and get a steady streaming schedule soon. We're also gonna be having some more other content on the channel because I've talked about doing gaming and gaming streams, and we've done a couple of gaming streams before on the channel. I just haven't continued playing those games because it just haven't felt like playing those games, unfortunately. But I'll be getting around to more stuff soon. Super Dragon Ball Heroes comes out this week, and I'm very excited for that game, so I'm probably going to be covering that on the channel also, just to bring a little more variety and stuff, you know, bring in some more people from the Dragon Ball side of the community. I like you guys. I'm a Dragon Ball fan, also a JoJo fan, so if you guys are interested in any of those things, you know, stick around. You can follow me on Twitter at FreyKugel. You can join my Discord, links in the description down below, and also just go into the comments and, you know, discuss with me what you like or dislike about Stone Ocean. I'm up for everything and anything, you know, related to that. Whatever you like or dislike about it is your own opinion, of course, and you're free to feel the way that you do. I just think that when it comes to discussing things, you know, people could be a little more reasonable and not nitpick it too hard and just, you know, have like a super strong bias against something all the time. But people are going to do what they want to do anyways. So thank you guys so much for sticking around and hearing me ramble about this for God knows how long. I'll see you guys next time.